7 senior Israeli military officers gone in one single strike, and the missile that killed them, nobody could stop it. Not Arrow, not THAAD, not Patriot. 10 interceptors were launched, and every single one of them failed. Welcome back to John A.G. Reports, and what you're about to hear will completely change how you think about modern warfare. Let's set the scene. Somewhere inside Israel, there was a heavily fortified IDF command center. It was built to survive, it was reinforced, it was protected by some of the most sophisticated air defense systems on the planet. And on a day that will be remembered in military history, Iran sent a single weapon straight through all of it. A video footage from Israel has shown the moment an Iranian hypersonic glide vehicle struck that fortified command center, killing 7 senior officers along with numerous other personnel, 7 commanders, 1 strike, 1 missile that nobody could stop. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because at John A.G. Reports we cover stories like this before anyone else does, and we break them down in a way that actually makes sense. Now let's get into exactly what happened and why this changes everything. The weapon responsible for this strike is called the Fattah II. It is an Iranian hypersonic missile project developed by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Introduced as a successor to the Fattah I, equipped with a hypersonic glide vehicle designed to reach extreme speed and maneuverability. The name in Persian means conqueror, and after what happened at that IDF command center, that name suddenly feels very appropriate. Now, to understand why this missile is so different, you first have to understand what it is not. Most missiles, the kind that have been flying around in conflicts for decades, follow a predictable path. They go up, they arc through the sky, and they come back down. Radar systems can track that arc. Computers can predict where the missile will land. Interceptors can be launched to meet it. That is the entire logic that multi-billion-dollar air defense systems are built around. The Fattah does not do that. Instead of following a predictable arc like a traditional ballistic missile, it deploys a hypersonic glide vehicle, a maneuverable payload that can weave through the atmosphere at extreme speeds. Imagine throwing a stone only for it to suddenly change direction mid-flight. That is what air defense radars and computers are now dealing with. A weapon that moves, pivots, and shifts course, all while traveling at speeds that most interceptors simply cannot match. The Fattah missile uses a hypersonic glide vehicle rather than a usual ballistic missile re-entry vehicle, allowing it to maneuver in both pitch and yaw to maintain far higher re-entry speeds and to approach targets from unexpected directions. Such missiles can sustain atmospheric skip glide or shallow glide flight at hypersonic speeds. Read that again. It can approach from unexpected directions. That means even if your radar detects it, calculating where to aim your interceptor becomes incredibly difficult because the missile itself is actively changing course the whole time. And how fast are we actually talking about? Iranian officials claim the Fattah can reach Mach 13 to Mach 15, which would push its velocity to approximately 15,000 to 18,000 kilometers per hour under ideal conditions. At that speed, a missile launched from western Iran could theoretically reach targets across much of the Middle East in under 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That is not much time to detect, confirm, decide, and intercept. And the Fa-2 spends that entire 10 minutes moving in ways that make interception a near impossible task. Leading technological challenges in moving from maneuverable re-entry vehicles to hypersonic glide vehicles include enduring skin temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees C, avoiding the extreme cracking of composite materials, and maintaining stable control despite a blade of erosion. What that means in plain English is this: building a hypersonic glide vehicle is extraordinarily difficult. The temperatures involved are intense enough to melt most materials. Maintaining guidance and control at those conditions is an engineering challenge that only a handful of nations on Earth have cracked. and yet Iran apparently cracked it. Now here's the part that will really get your attention. After that strike, after 10 interceptors failed, after 7 senior Israeli officers were killed, it was not an Iranian general who confirmed that this missile is essentially unstoppable. It was an Israeli defense executive. Yuval Basesi, vice president of leading Israeli missile defense system developer Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, highlighted that the FOA-2 had forced the firm and the Israel Defense Forces to completely rethink their approach to missile defense. He said, hypersonic missiles open a new era in air defense, and warned that traditional approaches could not be relied on against them. Let that sink in for a moment. Rafael Advanced Defense Systems is the Israeli company that builds many of the very interceptors that were fired at this missile. Their own vice president went on record to say their systems cannot handle what Iran just demonstrated. He did not say this quietly behind closed doors. He said it publicly, and then he made one of the most striking analogies you will ever hear from a defense industry insider. Drawing an analogy to basketball, Pesky said, one interceptor missile tracking one hypersonic missile is like defending LeBron James with a single player. You may keep chasing him, but you won't stop him from scoring. That is Israel's own defense industry telling the world that the missile they have been facing is under current conditions essentially unguardable. You can throw players at it, but it will score anyway, and in this case, scoring means destroying a fortified military command center and killing 7 senior commanders. So what does this mean strategically? This is where the story goes from shocking to genuinely alarming. The entire premise of Israeli military doctrine for decades has been that fortified, hardened command infrastructure is survivable. You build your command centers deep underground, reinforce them, protect them with layers of air defense, and your leadership and command structure remains intact even in a major conflict. The Fattah directly attacks that assumption. The use of the Fattah to strike very high-value Israeli command infrastructure demonstrates not only the high levels of precision achieved, which is particularly difficult at hypersonic speeds, but also the ability to penetrate the existing air defense network. Precision at Mach 15. Think about what that means. This is not a weapon that just moves fast and hopes to hit something in the general area. It found a specific fortified building, maneuvered through layers of defense, and struck it with enough precision to kill 7 senior officers inside. Now let's talk about the history of this weapon, because the timeline here is fascinating. The Fattah was never reported to have been used in combat before March 1st, 2026. The missiles were launched following the initiation of a coordinated large-scale military assault against Iran by the United States and Israel. So, this was Iran's response to being attacked. They reached into their arsenal and pulled out a weapon that had never been fired in combat before. And the very first time they used it, they killed 7 Israeli generals with one strike. On March 1st and 2026, Iranian military sources and regional outlets reported that Fattah-2 missiles were used to target high-value military installations, including an Israeli Defense Forces command center and U.S. military facilities in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar. So the IDF command center was not the only target. Multiple high-value installations across the region were struck by this weapon in what was essentially its combat debut. This was not a test. This was a statement. And now we have to talk about what the defense world is actually going to do about this. Because here is the uncomfortable reality. Implementing a new defense system capable of addressing hypersonic threats could take years and tens of billions of dollars, leaving Iran's Fattah arsenal a serious threat to both Israel and the United States for the foreseeable future. You cannot solve this problem overnight. You cannot rush the engineering. And in the meantime, every hardened command center, every military installation, every airbase across the region now exists under a new kind of threat that nobody has a reliable answer for. Israel has yet to show signs of being able to implement a zone-based interception approach, which even if financed, would take several years and likely cost tens of billions of dollars. It is likely that Iran's Fattah arsenal will continue to be able to penetrate Israeli defenses with impunity. This has placed more pressure on Israeli and U.S. forces to quickly gain greater dominance over Iranian airspace to destroy ballistic missile launchers on the ground before they are able to fire. That last point is critical. If you cannot stop the missile in the air, the only real option is to destroy the launcher before it fires. That means offensive operations inside Iran. That means a completely different kind of escalation. Clears throat. Let us also zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, because this strike does not exist in isolation. This is happening in the middle of an ongoing conflict that has already seen Iranian attacks on U.S. bases in the Gulf, disruption of Gulf airspace, Strait of Hormuz tensions, and now this, a hypersonic missile killing 7 IDF generals inside a fortified command center. Each of these events individually would be major news. Together, they paint a picture of a conflict that has escalated far beyond what most people in the West fully appreciate. Defense industry officials have acknowledged that adapting air defense systems to address hypersonic threats will require new strategies. Some researchers have proposed zone-based interception models where multiple layers of interceptors attempt to neutralize incoming weapons as they approach different defense perimeters. Such systems could significantly improve response capabilities, but would require enormous financial investment and years of development. Years, not months, years. And right now, the shooting is happening today. There's also the geopolitical dimension to consider. Russia has its Orchnik, China has its DFZF. North Korea has been testing hypersonic glide vehicles, and now Iran has demonstrated combat use of the Fattah 2. The missile's trajectory and speed resemble Russia's Oreshnik used in Ukraine, supporting Iran's claims of hypersonic strikes on Israel. The similarities are not coincidental. The world's most sophisticated hypersonic programs have been developing and sharing knowledge, and what Iran just demonstrated is a product of that broader technological environment. What makes the Fattah 2 particularly significant in the global context is what it signals to every other nation watching this conflict. If a country under severe sanctions, facing constant military pressure, and operating outside the mainstream of global defense technology, can develop and successfully deploy a hypersonic glide vehicle capable of penetrating Israeli and American air defense systems. What does that mean for the future of air defense everywhere? It means the rules of the game have changed. It means the multi-billion-dollar investments in interceptor systems may be less reliable than governments have been telling their citizens. The implications for the United States are also direct and immediate. While the U.S. has suffered from severe shortages of anti-ballistic missiles for its Patriot and THAAD missile defense systems, the use of hypersonic missiles has posed particularly significant challenges. American bases in the region in Bahrain and Qatar and Kuwait are now operating under the knowledge that Iran has a weapon that can strike them with high precision and very low probability of interception. That changes Decision M, that changes force protection, that changes the calculus of what it means to project military power in the Middle East. There's one more thing worth noting about the FAD-2 that rarely gets discussed. The FAD-2 sits somewhere between a ballistic missile and a cruise missile, fast like the first, maneuverable like the second. That hybrid nature is exactly why hypersonic weapons have become one of the most talked about military technologies of the last decade. Existing air defense systems were built to handle one or the other. Fast missiles that follow predictable paths, or slow-moving, maneuverable missiles that can be tracked. A weapon that is both fast and maneuverable that breaks both categories simultaneously. And the world's air defense systems are not yet built to handle that combination reliably. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a moment in history where one strike, one weapon, has fundamentally shifted the conversation about air defense, military doctrine, and the balance of power in the Middle East. 7 Israeli generals are dead. A fortified command center that was supposed to be survivable was not. 10 interceptors failed. And Israel's own defense industry has gone on record to say The era of traditional missile defense is over. This is what the Fattah has done in its combat debut. And the world, every military analyst, every defense ministry, every weapons developer is now absorbing what that means. The answers are not clear yet. The response is not defined yet, but the question has been asked loudly in a single hypersonic strike on a fortified command center in Israel. This is a story that is still developing, and John AG Reports will keep you updated as new information emerges. If this video helped you understand what is really happening in this conflict, please share it with someone who needs to see it and drop a comment below. Do you think Israel and the United States have a credible answer to the Fattah 2 right now? Let us know what you think, because this conversation matters and your perspective matters. See you in the next one.